don't know about you, but sometimes time runs away on me, and yeah, it's Christmas before we even think about it, or we're going away on holiday before we even think about it. So hopefully this video comes at a good time, sparks your memory so that you get organized as quick smart. Alright, so if you're going away on holiday, there's always a few things you need to think about before you leave, and you need to get organized so that your pet is able to either come with you and be fully prepared, you know, you're fully organized with all their stuff that they need, or if they're going to a pet sitter, they have access to all the things that your pet will need. And of course, if they're going into kennels or a cattery, they too will have everything your pet will need. So let's find out what you have to think about. If you haven't met me before, I'm Dr. Leigh. I run yourvetonline.com, and we provide you with access to veterinarians 24/7. So if you've got a problem at any hour of the day or night, our vets are always online, willing to help. And in this channel, we love to just help out with lots of tips and tricks so that your animals live the best, healthiest lives possible. All right, let's get right to it. First up is probably vaccinations. Are they up to date? There's nothing worse than booking your pet into the kennel or the cattery, turning up and then them saying, you're overdue your rabies vaccine. And you're like, oh damn. This can be a real problem. So I go and check straight away after you've watched this video. Make sure that if you are going away, that your pets are fully up to date. Remember, things like rabies is actually law, so you need to have that very much in date. But there's other vaccinations that you might want to consider especially if you're heading into kennels and catteries, because your dog or your cat will be mixing with other animals, so they might be more prone to things. So for dogs, we're mainly talking about kennel cough in these situations. Check out our video on that. I'll put a link up above, because that will tell you more about how kennel cough works. But kennels are a high contact area, and so the risk of them picking up that sort of disease is actually quite high. And for cats, cat flu is a similar sort of situation. So you want to make sure that you're fully up to date and get those vaccinations happening before you go away. Also, don't forget flea, worm and tick prevention. Is that up to date? Also, remember to have a really good think about where you might be going with your pets. So if you're traveling to an area that has got a lot of ticks, and maybe you don't live in a tick area, then it's worthwhile checking those areas out. Make sure that your pet is covered before you go. There'd be nothing worse than getting ill for a disease that's entirely preventable just because you didn't realize that that area had a high prevalence of ticks and you failed to give your pet tick prevention. One thing that you might not realize is that veterinarians can't actually fill a script from another veterinarian. It's actually against the law. Pharmacists are the only ones that can fill and dispense a script, and that's super frustrating because not all pharmacies carry all animal medications. So sometimes you might not even be able to source a specific medication for your pet. So please make sure you have enough medications for your pet before the public holidays. And be really wary of pet online chemists in this situation. Many are from overseas and unregulated. Getting your medications on time might also be an issue, especially with freight services and post offices not being that speedy at the moment with their deliveries. Also, big one, ensure your pet's microchip details are up to date in the pet registry. Every time you move or change a phone number, you need to make sure the details in the registry are changed. If your pet ever goes missing, the first thing that any dog, pound, pet, rescue or vet will do is look at this, they'll scan the microchip and then they'll try and ring you. If it's not up to date, it can lead to such a frustrating period for everybody involved. Often your pet will be safe and sound, but returning them to you could be delayed. So definitely it always pays just to make a quick check You can find out the names and addresses and phone numbers and all that on the internet for these places. So whoever you register your pet with, go and have a look and just check out to make sure all the details are correct. Now, if you're going away, there's often quite a lot of things that your sitter needs to be aware of, how to care for your pet appropriately and the way that you want them to be cared for. It's super important that your contact details of you or a person that you have named as the trusted person to make decisions on your behalf are very clearly set out so that whoever's looking after your pets know exactly who to ring in the case of an emergency. Even if you are somewhere where there's no internet or phone reception, there always has to be somebody available who can make decisions on your behalf. It's one of those things. I've been in situations where an animal has been hurt really quite badly and we haven't been able to get hold of anybody to make the hard decisions. And that can be super frustrating for everyone and can prolong suffering in a lot of ways, because if we don't, well, when I say suffering, I don't necessarily mean pain, because vets will always help an animal in that respect, but we're not going to start treating any problems until we know who the owner is, we get the deposits to pay for the process and what's required. So always make sure that you let whoever is looking after your pet know exactly who's in charge, who can make decisions, and all their contact details. Even having a few people would be really handy. Another thing to make sure that is really clearly spelled out is all the feeding details for your pet, like the type of food they have, the amount, what they're allowed to have, what they aren't allowed. You don't want your pet sitter giving your dog a pig's ear when they are known to choke on it. Also, any allergies your pet might have, like your cat might be really susceptible to mosquitoes, or maybe your dog might not be able to have penicillin, or schmackos make his tummy so upset that it's diarrhea for another 10 days. Who wants that? So make sure you highlight any of those little issues so that your pet sitter, so your pet sitter doesn't have to deal with it during the holiday period. Yeah, it's probably worthwhile getting a whole list of all the known health problems that you know about and concerns, what medications your pet's on, when they have to have the medications, what they can have, what they can't have, and highlight any behavioural quirks, like is your dog really doesn't like men wearing a black hoodie and will attack and bite, then you probably should write that down and let your pet sitter know. There's nothing worse than thinking about these things after the fact. So it's better to just put it all out there on the table, and then nobody is remiss in not knowing and can't say, I never knew. It's sort of like one of those situations like with the dog park. You know, if you've got a reactive dog that can be a little bit funny with other dogs coming near them, please let the pet sitters know. Nothing worse, and you really don't want to get into a situation where your dog is at risk of even being put to sleep because it's done something like attacked another dog. So just think of all those little things. Now, I'm going to talk about something that's kind of sensitive, and I know not many people like to talk about this, but I really can't stress how valuable this information is to everyone. Yep, we're going to be talking about money. How much you are prepared to spend on each pet is really super important, and you need to let everybody know that. So perhaps let your regular GP vet know what your limit is for a particular pet. Let your pet sitter know, let the people that might be your trusted person if you can't be got hold of. Working out how much money you are prepared to spend on each pet is super important, and I cannot stress how valuable this is to everybody. It's really not okay to just say, I love my pet and spend whatever it takes. You know, your dog might require surgery in an emergency, and it's potentially going to cost more than $10,000. Can you really afford that? Can you justify it? There is absolutely no shame on putting a value on how much you are prepared to spend on each pet. I do it, many people do it. It really does save a lot of heartache later on. Let everybody know how much you are prepared to spend on each pet. So that means your GP vet, it means your pet sitter, and it also means the contact person you've got as a backup in case you can't be contacted. The more people you tell and the more people you let know, the better it is. So at least treatment can be started, and even if you aren't able to be contacted. Another thing to think about is if your pet is insured. Make sure you pop down the insurance company's details and policy numbers so that claims can be processed immediately. A lot of insurance companies now do process those claims actually at the time, so you may not have too much out of pocket, so it's very good to be able to do this. Also, don't forget to include your vet's contact details and your emergency centre, because over the holiday period most GP vets will not be working. They close up and it's only the emergency centres that will be available. So make sure everyone knows where those places are. Even if it's you, just put the number on your fridge, because there's nothing worse than having an emergency and then having to panic, try and find where these places are and what their number is, what the address is, because a lot of the times an emergency, you need to get on the road quickly and make that call while you're on the road. Let's not forget that Christmas and New Year is a time when we have a lot of storms and fireworks, and there's a lot of phobias. So you might want to make a game plan for how you're going to handle this pre them occurring. Well, there's definitely options that we can discuss related to helping your pet without medications. For many pets, medications are an absolute. So you need to do that before the instance and before these fireworks and things start happening, so that you can do a little bit of a test run and make sure that the meds actually do work, because sometimes they don't, or you might need to change the dose rate to be more effective, or maybe in some cases not to have such a severe effect. One of the big things is never to growl or reprimand your pets if they're showing signs of fear. This will only make matters worse. So if your dog or cat wants to hide, provide a safe, sheltered area and let them. If they want to cuddle, cuddle them back. Talk in a really soothing voice. You might put some really soothing music on, that helps a lot. I've got a video, I'll put the link up above, and you can have a look about music that's good for soothing pets. Thunder shirts and the little earmuffs can be a good option too. Again, you want to try those before the situation occurs so that they get nicely adapted to them and they can feel safe wearing them. There's no point putting them in a thunder shirt if they are just petrified of the shirt itself, or they won't handle having earmuffs on their ears. So you need to try these things out first. There's also some over-the-counter products that your animals might benefit from. So there's pheromone products like Adaptil for dogs. There's Zilkene, which is a milk derivative from casein protein that works with some like cats and dogs. And Feel Away is another pheromone product for cats. They can be all bought over the counter. They don't need a prescription. They work really well the Zilkene is a food, but the pheromones can either be a collar, a spray that you spray on bedding, that sort of thing, or you can use a diffuser that just plugs into the wall in a room. So if you've got a small room that your dog, your cat likes sleeping in, you might put that in that area and the pheromones will fill the room. Now they're completely safe for us as people and for your animals. But just a note too that if you've got cats and dogs, you'll need to use both because it's a pheromone that is specific to the species. So the Adaptil is for dogs, Feel Away is for the cats. Okay, what about holiday food. Yeah, we're just got to be really careful during this holiday period, and that we avoid feeding human food. We might think we're being really kind, but all too often it actually turns out that we make our pets sick. Many of the foods that we love can actually cause really nasty gastrointestinal upsets, such as vomiting and diarrhea, to actual life-threatening pancreatitis. Not only that, some are actually highly toxic and could potentially result in death. So definitely be really careful. So listen on up, I'm going to tell you which ones are really bad. Okay, we all probably know about chocolate. That can be quite toxic. Remember the rule? The darker the chocolate is, the more highly toxic it is. So white chocolate, not really a problem. Dark chocolate, 100% massive problem. So if your dog has eaten some chocolate, head over to the website. I'll put the description below for the link. We've got a calculator that will tell you how much they've eaten and how dangerous it is, and whether your dog is at risk of toxicity. Now, I've also got a video which I'll link up above that will tell you how to make your pet vomit. So if they've had too much chocolate or some of these other things I'll talk about soon, and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Everybody's closed, there's only the emergency clinic open. You do need to make them vomit. So I'll put the video up about how to make your dog vomit at home. You still will have to talk to a vet. Sometimes even we just want them to vomit quickly and as soon as you sort of notice the issue, but they may still need treatment, and they might not need to go in then and there, but they may need to see a vet at some stage. So always remember yourvetonline.com, 24/7 service. So if you need just that little piece of advice, do I need to rush now, or can I wait until tomorrow, or maybe it's public holiday today but it's not tomorrow, so it's going to be cheaper to go to the vet tomorrow. We can help you with that. Don't forget grapes and raisins, highly toxic, cause renal disease. Again, I've got a video on that, I'll link, so take a look for some more information. Definitely keep your pets away from those. And remember that grapes and raisins, well, raisins in particular, are often in lots of foods. So in your fruit cakes, in your minced tarts, in donuts, all these things. Yeah, sometimes there's a lot of dangerous food, like ingredients in another food. So just be wary about that. Other tips I have is to make sure that we keep our rubbish bins really closed and away from pets. So remember, dogs love to scavenge, so do cats. Bones can break teeth, they can swallow them, get stuck in the esophagus, or go right down and then get stuck in the gastrointestinal tract. And also, if it doesn't get that far, sometimes just overeating bones and that sort of thing can actually lead to constipation, because raw meats and rubbish can give your pets a really nasty bacterial infection. And sometimes those can also be passed on to your family. Just be wary where you're keeping your rubbish, how much access your pets have to it. It's always a good idea to have, a bin with a big lid. No one can get into it. Alcohol, absolutely similar to us. They can get drunk too. And don't forget xylitol, which is that artificial sweetener that's in heaps of sweets and cakes, and it spreads, and it can cause a massive release of insulin, resulting in profound hypoglycemia and can sadly result in death. Just be really careful. Don't let children share their sweets with your pets. Be really careful with things like peanut butter, spread, all the cheese spreads. A lot of those all have xylitol in them because it might taste better, be a little bit sweet. Not so good for our pets. And onions and garlic. Yeah, these can cause that nasty gastric irritation, which might result in maybe vomiting, but also it can result in hemolytic anemia if they eat enough of it. So just be a little bit wary about that. Now, as I said, we do have a video on how to make your pets vomit, so check the link for, above and below for that. And if you need a vet, our vets are always online. It's $49.95 Australian dollars, so it's not too expensive there, and we're available 24/7. Alright then guys, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and with all your family and friends and your pets. I'll try and get some sun hopefully, and yeah, have a good one. Cheers.